Good morning, and welcome to the First Parish Church of Stone Acton, a welcoming and spiritual community. My name is June McKnight, and I serve as the chair of the worship committee at FPC. For those visiting FPC for the first time, we welcome you. Please let us know you were here by filling out one of our visitor information cards in the pews and hand it to an usher or drop it in the plate. Our minister, staff and board are listed on the front of the order of service. Please feel free to ask me or any of these people for more information. If you would like a large print order of service or hymnal or an assisted listening device, please ask our ushers. Our assisted listening devices are small radios. Anyone is welcome to use one of those to listen to the service from another space in or around the building. I'd like to draw your attention to the announcements in our order of service and also invite you to check out our webpage for more information. You can also sign up there for our newsletter and email alerts. Today, I'm delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Reverend Tom Rosiello. Tom served First Parish Church from 2002 to 2017, a 15-year ministry. Tom contributed to the growth and vitality of our church, expanding our community, our programming, our campus, and most of all, our spirit. Tom served our congregation with compassion, intelligence, and often spoke out on issues of social justice, leading initiatives to recognize the rights and dignity of all persons and putting his beliefs into action in his journey. Upon his retirement in 2017, the congregation voted unanimously with deep respect and gratitude to designate Tom as our Minister Emeritus. This honor recognizes and sustains our continuing but changed relationship with Tom. In Tom's own words, he failed at retirement and for the past 6+ years has served as minister of the 250-member active UU congregation in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. Did I say that right?
You said it right.
I've been practicing that in pronunciation. That congregation has a social justice foundation helping about a dozen NGOs in Mexico. He returns to the US during the summer, where he and his partner Malcolm still have a lake cottage and often guest preach to raise money to help with social justice work in Mexico. Welcome, Reverend Tom. And now let us come together for a time of community, singing, and worship.
Thank you, June, for your very kind introduction. It's wonderful to return to my old pulpit and to this beautiful space. And most importantly, to see all of you. It's hard to believe that it has been 8 years since I was your minister, and it's an honor to continue in relationship with you as your minister emeritus. June, if you'll assist. It's the custom at this church and most Unitarian Universalist congregations to mark the beginning of our time together by lighting a chalice flame. Symbolically, we bring together a spark from the flame that burns in each of us to light a single flame. In doing so, we declare that we are one, and the flame we light, the flame that now burns in the midst of this community, is a beacon of welcome to all seeking a liberal spiritual home. It's the light of truth that we are always discovering anew. It burns with both the fire of justice and the warmth of love and compassion. Well, it's so good to see so many of you here. Many of you who I don't know who've joined and become active since my time, but there are also lots of familiar faces. And I don't know how you do it, but almost none of you have aged very much except for me. I don't get it, but maybe Mexican air is not as good for that. I don't know. Anyway, it's good to see those of you who return here week after week, even some of you generation after generation, to this place, this very sacred place, where during my time and long before me, we dedicated your children, celebrated your coming of age, officiated at your weddings, responded with pastoral care when you were ill, supported you in times of loss and grief, and helped you connect with each other and the sacred. For me and for many of you, I know this is the home of our soul, a place where we have discovered again and again who we are and where we have been reminding us again and again of the values that we share, where we have our spirits lifted in tough times and we've done the same for others when they've been going through difficult times. It is important to return again and again to this place, to this community, to this faith tradition, especially right now. These are indeed difficult times, but not times to wring our hands, not times to rant with anger or curse with outrage, not times to give up or go searching for who knows what. It's time to, with renewed commitment, to return to who we are, to what we are, indeed to return to the home of our soul. But in challenging times, it is always important to return to the core of our being and our faith. So each Sunday morning is an invitation to do just that, to again and again to return. So would you please join me and our musicians in extending that invitation to each other in song? We're going to chant together. It's number 1011 in the supplement. And as we chant together, perhaps think about what the meaning of to return to the home of your soul really is. Now, how are we going to do this? We're not going to do any repeats. I'm going to lead you through once, but I will need your help because I have a little sinus infection and a blocked ear. So we're going to need you to help along. And after we sing it together all once, we're going to sing it as a round or a canon. And so I will lead this side and our musicians will lead that side. So I invite you now to rise in body and spirit, join in singing the gathering chant, and please remain standing for the covenant and the affirmation. Could we have a piano pitch first? Thanks. I don't want to start you too high or too low. Here we go. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul. Oh, going to 2. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. This side. Return again. Return again. Return to the home of your soul. Going forward. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to who you are. born and reborn again. We'll keep going. Return again. Return again. Return where you are. Come of your soul. Lovely. Thank you. You still sing well. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. From all that dwell below skies, let words of love and peace arise. Let joyful songs of praise be sung through every land, by every tongue. Please be seated.
We would like to acknowledge that this service is being held by a community that gathers on the stolen traditional lands of the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag people. We pay respect to all those Indigenous peoples who nourish this land before us, and we strive to do likewise. This is the time in our service where we share our joys and sorrows, and I'd like to invite Anne Sadler, one of our lay ministers, to lead us with that.
Good morning. My name is Anne Sadler, and as June said, I am one of the lay ministers here at First Parish, and we help the Reverend Cindy with pastoral care. You can contact us. The email information is in the order of service. So if you have any needs for someone to talk to or help with anything, please reach out to us. The way this is going to happen is people in the congregation can raise their hands shortly, and an usher will bring you a microphone, and you can speak. You need to hold the microphone close to your mouth so that everybody can hear. When the people in the congregation have shared, we'll open joys and sorrows to those people online. I'm going to start with asking for the ushers to come and light candles for me. The first candle, I would like to light a candle of joy just to welcome Reverend Tom back here in our midst. We have 3 final candles to light today. The first candle is the blue and yellow candle to be lit in honor of Ukrainian Independence Day, which is today. And then we light a candle for the cost of war, and the very final candle for those joys and sorrows that are unspoken but remain in our hearts.
Please join me in a time of prayer and reflection. Spirit of community, in which we share and find strength and common purpose. We turn our minds and hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and support. Those who are ill, those who are in pain, either in body or in spirit, those who are lonely, those who have been wronged. We acknowledge that we are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity, one with all the universe. May this time of sharing lead us to a better understanding of our community and of the precious gifts we possess and which enable us to minister to each other. Amen.
In July and August, we share our weekly offering with 4 recipients: UU Trauma Response Ministry, UU Mass Action, Native Plant Trust, and Groton Hill Music Centre. The morning offering will now be gratefully accepted.
In a moment, you're going to see a video from an excerpt from a piece called A Vision Unfolding by Kyle Peterson. And I understand, if I'm not right, correct me, that the choir here sang that earlier this year. So I didn't have a video of you, but I'm sure you did just as good of a job as this group will. But this is just a few minutes that Sharon is going to now show, which will be a little foundational for the sermon I'm going to preach. Okay.
Take my hand. Join me as we press forward, as we move with unrelenting speed towards a new world, one that we breathed and forged together, a place where all are welcome, a true community. Take my hand. Join me as we infuse freedom, weave compassion. See, this is what happens when we fashion a world centered in love. This is not a walk in the park, nor for the faint of heart. This is a journey, and all are invited to take part, where we reach down deep, reach down past comfortable, reach down past what's superficial. Reach down where past and present pain overflows. Reach past the temporary to bring hope and healing that will endure. We will reach back to pass the torch. Each of us a spark, but together a flame that roars. Take my hand and then take another's. For this is what you are called for, to walk down this broken road, to demand that every voice is heard, to forge a world where justice is assured.
Now I invite you to make some music together. Stand as you're able and join in singing hymn number 113 in the gray hymnal, Where is Our Holy Church? Where is our holy church, where race and class unite, as equal person in the search for beauty, truth, and right. Where is our holy writ? Where a human heart, a sacred torch of truth has lit by inspiration taught. Where is our Holy One? A mighty host respond. The people rise in every land to break the captive's bond. Where is our holy land? Within the human soul, wherever free minds truly seek with character a goal. Where is our paradise? In inspiration's sight, wherein we hope to see her rise 10,000 years of life. Please be seated. Please be seated. Well, I know some of you might think the hymn we just sang is kind of stodgy. Well, it is a 500-year-old tune, and I know many of the tunes we now sing today have a lot more bounce to them. But I, for one, and many of you probably remember, love those old hymn tunes. And I think the words set to the old tune in our hymnal that you just sang are masterful. They're written by Edwin Henry Wilson, an early humanist Unitarian minister. And the hymn poses questions and answers, if you read it carefully, that I believe are a good place to start with as we look at the role of liberal religion in these changing times, or these challenging times. The questions and answers set forth in the succession of verses in that hymn describe our religion as one that exists in us and among us, in relationship, that are based on uniting with others as equals to address injustice, support each other, find inspiration and hope, while still connecting with the deepest within us. Our faith is a call to action based on ethical values that we share and find support for and affirmation of in community. Our church is a place where hope is nurtured and mutual support and strength are found. So at the outset, let's recognize that this kind of religious tradition offers us tools to help us figure out how to address these challenging times and to support us on the journey. Of course, many religions have teachings that challenge some aspect of what's happening in the United States right now. But perhaps the church, defined as Wilson's hymn does, is particularly well equipped to fortify us for the challenges we are facing. It is in challenging times when it's really important to know who you are, what you bring to the table, and to ask what in our tradition gives us perspective, resources, and strength to meet the challenges of these days. The church that Wilson described in the hymn is one that evolved in parallel with the United States. The same values and principles that shaped both, and those values and principles are now being challenged, and some are attempting to rewrite that history. So I want to start with a bit of shared history. In April, the U.S. celebrated the 250th anniversary of an uprising to reject the power of an authoritarian ruler. A ruler who really did not care about how his policies affected the average person, but only how it enriched him and his wealthy cronies. Loyalty to a king was what was required, or else you were stripped of your position and branded a traitor. This church was a part of that history. As you know, we're just a few miles down the road from the Old North Bridge in Concord, where in April of 1775, men from the Stowe militia left in the dark of early morning to join the Concord militia and proceed to the Old North Bridge where that famous shot heard around the world was fired. I remember fondly how important that history was to you. Now, I don't know if you still do this, but during my time here, each year on Christmas Eve, replicas of the lanterns that those men carried were placed on each side of the pulpit here. So it seems to me the history of fighting against authoritarian rule, against a king, is in the DNA of this congregation. Well, within a year of this momentous event in 1775, a formal declaration of principles upon which a nation would be built, one that had no king but was to be democratically governed and guaranteed individual rights and the equality of all people, was signed and sent off to old King George. The uprising against the authoritarian rule of old King George had been brewing for a while, and my verb choice is a hint to the answer to my next question. So what was that uprising the result of? Brewing. Tea. Yes, tea. Certainly tariffs. At least the straw that broke the camel's back was tariffs. Outrageous taxes on imported goods. Sugar and, of course, the tea that got dumped in the Boston Harbor. Tariffs that made certain goods unaffordable for the average person. But the uprising which led to the Declaration of Independence was about much more than tariffs. It was about the denial of due process, about pressuring local legislatures and the courts to toe the line, to get on board with the king or to face the consequences. The document that articulated the long list of not only grievances against the king, but the principles of democracy, human dignity, equality, and inclusion, principles of the Enlightenment, and upon which the United States was founded, was signed 249 years ago, last 4th of July. Even the people realized that these principles would not be self-executing or self-sustaining, especially in the future generations who had not known the hardship of what authoritarian rule really meant. Diligence and often taking action would be required. You know, many of us have heard over the years a quote from Benjamin Franklin when asked, "Mr. Franklin, what kind of government will we have?" He replied, "You will have a republic if you can keep it." For the first time in my life, I really now know what old Mr. Franklin was getting at. You know, some historians believe that if you look at the history of nations, all nations, 250 years is generally about the length of their longevity, about the length of time before something from without or within come to take it over, to change it dramatically. As this nation hits 250 years, it seems to me we are at a critical point, a point not dissimilar to the events that created the United States. And as an aside, let me say what's happening in the U.S. can and is happening in other countries too. Authoritarianism is contagious. Once one leader gets away with it, the next does. Moreover, the effect and the consequences of what's happening in the U.S. reach well beyond our borders. And as Mexico knows, where I live, hate and fear that's generated is often focused on those who come from other countries. The economic consequences are felt by other countries. Even the sovereignty of other countries are threatened. You know, take over Greenland or make Canada the 51st state. These sound outrageous, but they're real challenges for sure. Well, here we are again, 250 years after the first No Kings protest, where the wannabe king is doing his best to take away basic rights, restrict freedoms, and devalue many groups of people by denying their inherent worth and dignity. I bet some of you were out with signs on June 14th, where millions of people in thousands of locations gathered to hold up No King signs. And I'm afraid perhaps history now repeats itself. So why this admittedly oversimplified view of American history in a UU sermon? Because there was another history unfolding at the very same time, in many ways based on the same ideas and principles, even involving some of the same players. And that's the history of our faith tradition, a religious history that evolved in parallel to the history of a country. Yes, the history of this faith tradition does have roots that go back to the Reformation, even to biblical times. Some of you know that took my introduction to UU courses years ago. But Unitarian Universalist history really comes into its own in the early days of the United States. Now, what I want to make clear is that this is not a political speech. This is not about being a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. It is not about any of that. It is a religious talk. It is a sermon. It is a sermon to address how we, as liberal religious people, whatever your political affiliation, respond to hate, overcome fear, and find ways to bring our religious principles to the public square. And for me, that begins necessarily with an understanding and an embrace of our history, as briefly described by me. So let's dig a bit deeper and acknowledge a very foundational idea. For us, for Unitarians and Universalists, and Unitarian Universalists, freedom and democracy are religious values. And they are because they are based on the belief in the inherent worth and dignity of every individual. That is, everyone has an equal voice and the right to be treated with equality and dignity. For us, democracy, freedom, and the affirmation of the inherent worth and dignity of every individual are defining values of our faith, and they have been for a long, long time. Moreover, going back to the 1600s when our Calvinist Puritan forebears fled church authoritarian rule, we long ago rejected authoritarian rule of bishops or external church hierarchy. Freedom and democracy is not something apart from our religion. It is in every UU's religious DNA. it is important that we remember who we are in this critical time. But this foray into U.S. and UU history is hardly adequate to meet the moment. Grave injustices are being done with every stroke of a pen. Hate and fear are being spread through acts that can only be characterized, in my opinion, as cruel. They're happening at lightning speed, seemingly planned to overwhelm us, executed by people who suggest that either they're in line with their religious values or that religion is some pietistic personal act that has nothing to do with world affairs. Not so for us. Our faith has always been one that was engaged with the issues of the time based on the values and principles that we affirm. Looking back from abolition to women's suffrage to the civil rights movement, from LGBTQ activism, liberal religion, our religion is a religion plugged into the world. It's not that we reject theological exploration and prayerful spiritual practice. That's an important part of who we are too, and we all need that. But what really defines us is probably captured best in a quote from Scripture, from the book of James. We are indeed a religion of deeds, not creeds. So the first lesson I draw from our faith tradition as we face these challenging times is this: don't check out. And you know, it is really tempting to wash your hands of the whole thing, sort of shut off the TV, crawl into a hole. Even more tempting for those of us who've moved out of the U.S., and much easier for us too, those who have moved to Mexico or elsewhere. Some folks I know right now are specifically moving to Mexico just to get away from all that's happening in the U.S. Don't resign yourself to believing that this authoritarian takeover is inevitable. The manipulative message that the administration is sending out is that they have won, don't fight back, it's useless. But no, that's not the case. Many are working overtime in the courts and elsewhere to challenge these moves, and even though many are suffering and being made examples of, in most cases, Trump will lose. Remain hopeful and engaged. Speak your truth, a truth based on the principles of this faith. Resist in ways that work for you. Now, the second lesson is don't go it alone. And in a very good way, I was totally surprised when I read an editorial in the Washington Post by Perry Bacon Jr. The editorial was entitled, "Don't doom scroll about Trump, do 5 things instead." What a great word, doom scroll, huh? Of course, it means don't excessively, compulsively consume negative news in a way that increases your stress, your blood pressure, anxiety, and infects your mental health. But he's not saying be oblivious to what's happening or go through the world with blinders on either. But he is saying there's much better way to spend your time, ways that you can actually help yourself, better focus your energy on where it's needed in these crazy times, and thereby help others. Do you know what was number 2 on his list of the things that people should do in these challenging times? You're not going to believe this. In the Washington Post, his number 2 recommendation was join a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I'm going to say it again. His number 2 recommendation in this list of 5 for things to do in these challenging times, published in the Washington Post, was to join a Unitarian Universalist congregation. Bacon pointed out that he had recently done so and found it very helpful. He pointed to the fact that there are a growing number of people, particularly liberally inclined people, who are religiously unaffiliated and not regularly congregating with people who share their values. He's telling people that we are uniquely poised to help people meet this challenge. We don't all think alike, but we're open to each other. And I say amen to that, and let's not keep it a secret. Of course, what he's talking about, really, if you think about it, is the power of religious community to support each other and to collectively engage and do so from a place not just of shared values. Our values are not all identical, but from faith in the things that we believe to be right and true and just. This is a time to be active, involved in this or any other Unitarian Universalist congregation. And as I said before, like, wow, I never thought I would read that advice in the Washington Post. We need to be reminded again and again who we are and return to that, as we sang in the beginning. We need to be reminded of what our truth is, our values are, and we need to connect to the best of ourselves and find the courage to bring that to the world. And that's what happens in a UU congregation. That's what happens right here. And let's not keep it a secret. So invite your doom-scrolling friends to join us here, to stop doom-scrolling and do something. We need them, and they need us. Well, just as Bacon recommended we should not go it alone as individuals, we also should not go it alone as a religion, and we tend to do this sometimes. We need to work with other faith traditions whose teachings align with us, at least on some of the issues. The Abrahamic faiths all teach that it is our duty to welcome the stranger. Every religion of which I am aware has a version of the Golden Rule. Jesus taught that we should lift up the poor, the downtrodden, and those who are oppressed, and those whose rights are denied. And Judaism teaches that what's required of us is to do justice and practice mercy. Central to Judaism is the concept of tikkun olam, which means to repair the world through acts of kindness, social justice, and community service. It's a call to act to address injustice, alleviate suffering, and work towards a more equitable world. We have many differences with other faith traditions. We disagree on many issues, but in this time of crisis, we should bring our voices together. We should stand together, engage together in the areas where we share values and beliefs. It's sad for me to see some conservative religious leaders fall in lockstep behind a man in a movement that is really contrary to so many of the important teachings of their own faith. We need to bring together those from liberal religions and beyond to raise their voices and condemn what's happening as forcefully as I can, based on what each of our different traditions teach, because we don't all teach the same thing. A third teaching I want to draw from our tradition is stand with those whose rights are denied. Speak out for them when they cannot. Speak to other reasonable people who may not see the gravity of the situation. You know, as a former lawyer, you may remember, the denial of due process and the disdain for the court system has really personally been shocking to me. Just ignore what a court says or whatever. We should be intensely angry about this loss of freedom for many people. But the truth is, it's really a loss of freedom for all of us. It will spread from immigrants who have committed crimes to all immigrants, and then to their supporters. From trans people to all LGBT people. From challenging some votes to massive attacks on election systems and to delegitimizing election results when they don't go the way they want. It'll go from removing books from libraries to telling teachers what they must teach and what they cannot teach, to taking away decisions from parents about their children's care and banning foreign students at our universities. It's all shocking and contrary to the freedom upon which this faith was founded and the principles that embrace and guide us. These actions are all direct attacks on the idea that every individual is equal and has inherent worth and dignity. That the democratic process and the concept of freedom and justice have come from the belief that we are seeking attacks, come from that belief. And we are seeing attacks on the importance of pluralism and diversity in our institutions, and on the idea that we are all interconnected, interdependent. Now, some of you may not initially agree with this, but I'd like to explore how is it that DEI became a dirty word. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is now a bad thing? Folks, that is our religion. Like it or not, we are a DEI faith. I'm proud of that. Are you? If so, the world needs to know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of this religion. And you know, if they look at their own scriptures, it probably is a part of theirs too. The tent of Abraham, the father of monotheistic religions, was open on all sides. That's an important point. It means in the tent of Abraham, all people, especially the foreigner, the traveler, are welcome. Radical equality is integral to the Christian Gospels if you read them carefully. Even if you don't read them so carefully, it's pretty obvious. The voice of religion needs to speak loudly to this. But to me, I guess the most shocking thing about all these executive orders and firings of people and ICE raids and personal crazy attacks and the hatred and meanness with which they're being done, that's the essence of what is really most disturbing, is that sense of meanness and hate. The stirring up of hate and fear is part of their playbook. As a faith tradition, we have to always center compassion in our treatment of others. We can never buy into hate. We can never succumb to fear. We are indeed a people of justice and compassion. It's sickening to me to see the cold lack of compassion in this administration. I watch little children with cancer who are here receiving treatment being deported. Mothers ripped from their children, even mothers who are nursing a child being ripped from their child and deported. Where is their humanity? Where is their compassion? Where is their religion? Unidentified, ununiformed, masked men raiding schools or churches or grabbing people off the streets. These are tactics we are witnessing that I never thought I would see in the U.S. The fear that exists in these targeted communities is horrifying. We have to call that out. We cannot respond and should not respond with similar tactics of hate and fear. Instead, we must show the world the opposite. The opposite of hate is love. The remedy for fear is love. We must show forth in our lives love for those under attack. We must stand with them. We must welcome them and give them safe harbor in our community. We should not attack those arresting people for no reason. There are indeed arrests being made that should be made, rightfully. But for masked men picking up willy-nilly people off the streets, we shouldn't attack them. We should shame them. Where there's hatred, we need to bring love and healing. At the very center of our faith tradition is love, and all the other values spin off of that. So my final bit of advice is to let love be your guide. Demonstrate all the values that flow from love. Condemn the haters with love. In the words of Francis of Assisi, where there is hatred, let us sow love. Be witnesses to a better way. Now, maybe that sounds pretty naive, but my experience is that love is the most powerful force in the world, stronger than fear,